I'm Ben. I'm the operations guy around here. You all know me. And so we're going to talk about something that I'm passionate about, productivity. All right. And the talks so far have been really great, and I've actually heard echoes of some things that I'm going to talk about in Jack and Jason and Kim's talk. So good stuff so far. So here we go. Ooh, my fonts came out. Good. So this is the issue, right? Life can be stressful. We all know this. We all have stress in our life. Twin does a great job of having a work-life balance. We get to work at home, but even that's not all roses all the time. People come in and bother us. We know the homework problems. But these are certain problems that I've had in my life and I've had to work hard to overcome over the years. And I think they're things that we can all relate to, right? Fear of failure, lack of control, lack of progress, your physical state, which Kim just talked about, and interpersonal conflict. So I want to talk about all this because as an operations guy, the happier you are, the more productive you're going to be, the less days you're going to miss for work, the less mistakes you're going to make. So I have a vested interest in it, but just out of a personal relationship that I have with all of you, I want you to be happy in your own lives and be fulfilled in your own lives. And if I can give you a little bit of that, then I've done my job here today. And this is really where I'm going to get to. And if you take nothing else out of this, this is my whole point. And I'm going to keep coming back to this as I talk about things. This is what I call a virtuous cycle of positivity, right? So we're all familiar with what a vicious cycle is. Murphy's Law, everything that can go wrong goes wrong at once. And one bad thing leads to another bad thing, leads to another bad thing. Well, the same thing is true about positivity. It can be a virtuous cycle. And this is the idea. When you are stuck on things and when you're in churn on code, when you're having a hard time moving forward, you can have a tendency to become negative. And that will slow you down. That'll cause a vicious cycle. So what you want to do is do your best to do things in a way that can be positive. And if you're able to be positive, you'll be able to push through those difficulties and tasks, and you'll make those breakthroughs. When you're stuck on that code, instead of getting down on yourself, just keep trying. Just try to be positive. Just try to have that good focus, and then you'll eventually get that breakthrough. You'll see progress. You'll be happier, and that will build your positivity. And then that positivity will, again, feed your progress. So these two things can really feed each other, right? And this is what I want you to keep in mind as I talk about these things. And going back to that stressful slide, the first thing I had on there was fear of failure. And I think that's the biggest one. So let's think about that. We need to embrace failure, right? Smart people, perfectionists, the smart kid, I hate to fail. I hate to fail anything. It drives me absolutely nuts, and I kick myself about it all the time. But the fact of the matter is, you don't learn unless you fail. I mean, the master has failed thousands of times more than the novice has ever even tried. So you have to learn how to embrace failure and understand that failure is a key component in the learning process. And if you're not failing, you're not trying, you're not innovating. You're sitting in your comfort zone, you're sitting where you're able to be positive within yourself, but you're not putting yourself out there, you're not growing. You know, growth always involves a little bit of pain. You have to be able to push through. And if it's easy, everyone would have done it. So you have to embrace failure. You got to put yourself out there and try things, and if it doesn't work, that's okay. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're sitting there going, okay, Ben, that's easy enough for you to say. If I'm stuck on code or whatever, yeah, I'll just push through. But, you know, there are things in life that just go bad. There are some things that are just terrible. There's no positivity in it. You know, some things in life just suck. And, you know, that's kind of true. But in every bad thing, positive things can come out of it. So I'm going to tell you a story about my life. And my biggest failure in life has led to my greatest happiness. This is still hard for me to talk about, and I mentioned it a little bit to some people last night because the topic came up. But once upon a time, I used to live in Southern California. I had an apartment by the beach. I worked for an insurance company. Things were going pretty good in my life. And then I capped out at the insurance company, and I realized I wasn't going to go anywhere unless I was a lawyer. And I had bachelor's degrees, and I always intended to go to graduate school. I really kind of wanted to be a teacher back in the day, and I figured, I'll just get my JD, and then, work in law for a few years, and then just teach college, do that kind of thing. So I quit my job and I went to Southwestern University of Law, this place here, the Bullock-Wilshire building in Los Angeles. And because I was in a rush and because I didn't have much love for it, I really tried to crank myself through. So this Southwestern had a program that did law school in 2 years. So in 11 months, I did 2 years worth of law school, and I absolutely hated every minute of it. 9 hours of classes a day, at least 10 hours of work a night, 400 or 500 pages of reading every single day. And that's a lot of work for something that you're not passionate about, something that you just don't care about. And I was completely unhappy, and I got to a point where I couldn't deal with it anymore. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't successful at school. I wasn't successful at my job. I quit, I dropped out, and I left $89,000 in debt, no advanced career, no job, nothing to speak of, and I had no other choice in my life but to move from Southern California back home to the frozen wilds of upstate New York, tail tucked between my legs, 27-ish years old, moving back in with mom and dad. So there I was, broke, in debt, living at home with my parents. You know, who would love me? You know, I was a complete failure as a human being. I was broken to my core. But as things work out, when I was there, I had a friend in town, a girl I dated in high school, and her fiance died. And so I called her up because she'd been my friend for years, and I wanted to be sure she was okay. I was empathetic. And you heard that word in Jason's talk. I'm going to talk about empathy later, and Jack is very empathetic in his charity. Empathy, very important. So I reached out as a friend, and we, you know, I helped her through, and then before you know it, we became tighter friends again, and then she eventually became my wife. So we got married. And I was living at home. So I was living rent-free, which is good. So I helped pay down my student loans. I cut them down to a third of what they once were. I'll still be paying them off till I'm 54, but, you know, no big deal now. I was able to go back to school for IT and web development, and I got hired by Twin right out of college. And now I own a nice old Victorian home that I'm fixing up, and I have 2 lovely daughters here, Isabel and Della. So if it wasn't for that failure, if it wasn't for my life being completely broken down, I wouldn't have the wife, the home, the job, and the family that I always wanted. So if I would have given into the negativity and the sadness at that time and not tried to remain positive and not try to progress my life would have been a failure, and I would have just been at home. But because I worked past it and I was able to have that progress, it fed the positivity that allowed me to move on with my life. So embrace failure. Now, a little bit of what I'm talking about there is regaining control, right? When your life is out of control, you want to regain a sense of control. And for this topic, I want to talk about organizational method, because on a day-to-day basis, when I think about the things that overwhelm me, it's because I have a lot of stuff in my head. I don't have stuff well planned out. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you want to regain a sense of control in a very practical way on a day-to-day basis, organize yourself. And it doesn't matter what organizational system you use. You know, Notepad, Jira, what ticketing systems, you know, whatever works for you, it doesn't matter. What does matter is that every organizational method that you have should have the following characteristics. And I'll show you a sample of one of my crazy organizational methods. Okay, 3 things any good organizational method should have are: it should communicate expectations, you should break things into digestible tasks, and it should be readily accessible. Now, this is my family chore board. Try not to read all the crazy stuff that I got going on in my house, but this is how I organize my family. And I have this in the kitchen, so it's readily accessible, so everyone can see it. Now, first of all, communicates expectations. A lot of what creates negativity in teamwork, working with people, and in family relationships is that you have expectations and you're not communicating them. Like the dishes. If I want my wife to do the dishes and I don't tell her, and she wants me to do the dishes and she doesn't tell me, they're not going to get done. And then we're going to kind of each resent each other for never doing the dishes. So we put it on a schedule where one person does it one week and the other person does it the other week. But the key is that that expectation is communicated. And it's like, just like working on a Jira ticket that's assigned to somebody. It's like, this is your responsibility. We need you to do this. This is my expectation of you, right? So communicate that expectation. Next, you want to break things into digestible tasks. And again, thinking about project management and Scrum, we have epics, right? And we break epics down into individual tasks. And there's that concept of digestibility, that you want to do everything, you want all your tasks to be small enough that you can do them, in a reasonable amount of time. And here's an example. Like, say your bathroom needs to be cleaned. If you just put clean bathroom on the board and you do most of it, but it's not done, then it still says clean bathroom on the board. And you're like, I am not seeing any progress. I am feeling pretty negative about it, This has been on the list for days. But if you would have broken it down and said, clean the sink, clean the toilet, wash the floor, clean the bathtub. Maybe one time you're in there, you're like, I'll just clean the sink really fast. And you do that, and then you take that item off the board, and you've seen progress. And that makes you feel a bit better about yourself. As you can knock out things little bits at a time, you'll see that progress, and that will encourage you to want to do more rather than doing 99% of something and then still seeing that task there haunting you. So break things into digestible tasks. Also, readily accessible. Not only is the board in the middle of the room so that we can see it and it's there to communicate expectations, but it's there so I can act on it, and acting swiftly, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a second. But the idea here is, and you can see my supplies list, if I'm taking a shower and I run out of shampoo, first thing I do when I get out is I go down and I write it on the board. So Sunday, when my wife is working on the grocery list, she sees that and goes, oh, Ben needs some shampoo. Now, if I'm not there to tell her that, or I'm not in the store with her, or something like that, I'm not going to have shampoo and I'll have dirty hair. So when things happen, you want to act right then, when it's on your mind, when it's fresh. Resolving the issue might be a few days away, but at least it is then captured for future reference. So if you want to be positive, you want to progress in your life, and things are disorganized, organize them. And when you do that, have these traits in your organizational method. So readily accessible and acting swiftly. Okay, so a lot of you know my nickname is the Hammer, so I had to work in a hammer slide. In blacksmithing, there's the concept that you strike the hammer while the iron is hot. If you want to forge a tool, you want to forge a sword, whatever you're working on, you can't do it when it's cold. You just dent it to no end. So you have to do it at the right time. Timing is everything. And in our jobs, things come and go pretty quickly, and there's a perfect time to do things. And I'll give you two examples. I mean this in a reactive way and a proactive way. So reactively, the idea is this. Say you, and I know this has happened to all of you, you get on an email thread with 4 other people, and somebody is asking a question. There's a small fire going on, and you're the only one who knows the answer. But you're busy doing something else, and you don't really feel like context switching at the moment, so you're like, I'll deal with that later. So you don't deal with it fast enough. So somebody else who's on there, on that thread goes, I'll take care of the problem. They don't know what they're doing, so they ask all the wrong questions, they press all the wrong people, and they make all these assumptions that are just not what you need. So all of a sudden, that little fire becomes a much bigger issue and fire than you need it to be. Now, if you would have acted swiftly and said, guys, I know what's going on here. I can't deal with it right now because I'm doing some other stuff. Let me address this later. Bang, done, out. That fire wouldn't have grown, right? So if you act swiftly, when problems are starting to occur, you will keep them from becoming bigger problems. So that's very important. So if it's a reaction, act swiftly. And proactively, this is a positive thing too. Think about my organizational system as readily accessible. So if I have an idea, I can write it down. Inspiration strikes at the weirdest times. You might have that great idea for a new code, a new process, a new project, some great writing story idea, some art idea. And just like the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, you will never bring that vision to reality until you take a first step. And that first step doesn't have to be anything complicated. It can be as simple as writing it down. Oh, I've got this great idea, write it down, act. Do something to at least take that first step forward, even if it's as simple as writing it down. Because then maybe a day or a week later, you're bored and you don't know what to do, and you look at that item and go, oh yeah, I had that great idea last week. I have the time to work on it now. So follow your inspirations and take that first step, because you will never realize your full potential if you don't follow your dreams, if you don't follow those things that inspire you, and you'll never get there unless you take the first step to them. So again, act swiftly. Put it in your organizational system. It's readily available, and by doing this, you will progress forward with your dreams. You will feel more positive about yourself. Now, the next one's a big one, and Kim just had an awesome talk on this, so I'll just talk about it a little bit, understanding that mind-body relationship. So this was from Men in Black. This is the little Rosenberg alien, the little guy driving the human body, right? And I like this image because in Western philosophy, this is like the idea of the homunculus, which is sort of prevalent in Western thinking, that we have a soul inside us, we have a mind inside us, we have a little guy inside us who's the true us, who's driving our body. And it doesn't matter what's going on with your body, because your true self is the little guy inside driving it. But it's simply not true. Our minds and bodies are tied together. So if you want to be able to progress in a positive manner, you have to know how your body is. Like, I would find myself, some days on Tuesdays, I would just feel down. I'd feel fine on Mondays, feel fine on Wednesdays, but I'd be cranky on Tuesdays, and I didn't know why. And I thought Tuesdays were just not my good day, and I'd feel negative, and it would impact my work a little bit. Then I thought about it, and for myself, I've lost a little weight. I actually stopped drinking for the most part, the kickoff aside, but mostly I don't drink except for Sundays when I'm watching football. So I like to have a few beers while I watch the Bills lose. And even if I don't get hungover on Mondays, I find that 2 days after I drink, whenever I drink, I feel down, I feel negative, I lack energy. But now I'm aware of that. And so I'm like, dude, the reason why you feel like this today is because you did that the other day. Don't take it personally. Focus on the positive. Just put yourself in the work and move past it. Another thing that you need to do is understand your body's natural biorhythms. We all have ups and down times during the day. So for me, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. are 2 times of the day my body just traditionally shuts down. I like to take a nap if I can, but if I can't, what I have to do if I want to maintain productivity is schedule low energy tasks for those time periods. So if I'm doing something that really requires my brain power, I'm going to do that like first thing in the morning or after that time period. If I have things like entering stuff in spreadsheets or checking emails, that's when I block those into those low energy periods, because I don't need a lot of brain power to go through those. And by working in a way where my body is aligned with my mind and the tasks that I'm trying to do, I'm more positive in nature and therefore, again, able to progress. And diet is very important, exercise very important. Even if you're just getting up and stretching, it's very important. And one other quick call out I have for people in northern regions, next time you go to a doctor for like a physical, see if you have a vitamin D deficiency, because I was quite vitamin D deficient for years and I never realized it, the whole seasonal affective disorder. I had low energy and I was just tired all the time. And as soon as I got on that, it was like a switch was flipped in my body, and it was better than drinking coffee or anything else. I felt like my body was finally reestablished. So take care of it. Understand that your body really does affect your mind, and do your best to be in alignment there. And the last thing I want to say, and again, you saw this in Jason's talk, and you saw this in Jack's talk, is to be empathetic. A lot of times, most of my negativity comes when I'm too self-focused. You always have those questions. Why is so-and-so doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? Why are these problems happening to me? Why can't this person work with me? When you get like that, get outside of yourself. And, even if you're not going to do charity, even if you're not going to, do anything grandiose, have a friend over, make them dinner. Give of yourself on a small level. When you make food for someone and they eat it and it makes them happy and they really enjoy it, you feel better about yourself, but you're sharing resources, you're reaching out. There's a real human connection that comes, a lot with food. But, when you're working in business relationships and partnerships and you're trying to get stuff done and you want to progress, The way to do it positively is to say, what is it that they need? What are their interests in this matter? Like, this is what I need, rather than tell them what I need and put these demands on them. Ask yourself, what do they need and how can I help serve them? And if you do that, you will find that people are much more willing to work with you, much more willing to close that deal, much more willing to support you as a teammate. So always be empathetic in all the things you do. Now, when I was putting this talk together, the powers that be said, well, these are some great ideas. Can you bring it together in an acronym? And I found one that actually works, and I think it does apply. So embrace beauty. Be empathetic, embrace failure, act swiftly, understand the mind-body connection, take control, but most importantly, you have to do it in a manner that works for you. So do it your way. Thank you, everyone.